Hi guys, Jens Johansson from J2 here. A big question I'm hearing recently is for our larger communities of 10 buildings or 20 buildings or more, and looking at a 12-month repair process, there comes to light this phrase, why can't we just do one building at a time for the money we have and it'll save money? And so I wanted to address that question, and I'll start by saying I'm a thrifty, economical guy, and so I'm always about trying to save money and trying to figure out a way to do it for less. And I think it's really important to look at that question of why can't we just do one at a time, and there's time and a place to get things done. So the email to a client prompted me, and I just started banging away. I came up with 7 money concerns why it's not a great idea, and 9 reality concerns. And so I just wanted to share those with you. So the first question, one building at a time, it doesn't reduce the cost. It makes a smaller bite to chew, but think about buying in bulk. If we're going to do one building a year and I've got 10 buildings, first I got to start with motivating the contractor to come on out. And so it's like, dear contractor, come bid my job. I've got 100 square feet of siding, or I've got 6 windows, versus I've got 100,000 square feet of siding and I've got 1,000 windows. Who's going to be more excited about that? Hey, there's a big project. I can keep my crews busy for 12 months. I'm going to sharpen my pencil. I want this job. Versus that's a tiny little job. I don't even want to get out of my truck. It's not worth my time. So it gets into that buying in bulk idea of one roll of paper towels costs a lot more than a 30-pack at Costco, right? So when you look at the individual piece, when I'm doing lots of buildings, I'm working on 3 or 4 of them at a time. I'm rotating around. I'm keeping my crews busy, versus one building at a time. And I have to mob and demob every year. Mobilization, if you didn't understand what mob meant, but coming to the job, getting everything set up, whether it's scaffolding or ladders and pump jacks and temporary weather protection, etc. And then I have to take all that down, and then I have to go away. So let's move on to the second one. The inflation. The costs continue to rise in this rising economy. And so we all know that last year's costs were cheaper than this year's costs. Now, here's a couple of things that people don't understand. Storm shortages. So whenever we have a big hurricane, go down to Florida, the price of building materials skyrockets. All the local big box stores send all their products down to Florida. And so around in the local economy, you're now left with the guys who have small supplies and they can raise their rates. So at every storm, we see the price of OSB sheathing or gyp sheathing jump by 20%. You get into another piece, and I don't want to get into politics, but politics affects things. Tariffs. So this year, the cost of aluminum has gone up by 20%. Just in this year, we've seen costs go up significantly, so much so that the contractor is coming back and saying, hey, this particular event caused my material costs to go way up, so I have to give you a change order, and it's kind of undeniable that, yes, that did affect that. So last year's costs are always cheaper. Even 5 years ago, it was cheaper to build then than it is to build now. So if you're trying to time the economy, good luck with that. Go back to, everybody, it's 2019, and the news media is saying 2020 there will be a recession. Go back to 2012 headlines, the coming recession in 2013. Go back to 2015 headlines, the coming recession of 2017. Fear sells. So there's always a recession looming. If you're trying to time your building repairs for the crash to get hungry contractors, you'll be waiting a while. So damage. The reason we're out here fixing your buildings is because there's water intrusion, there's rot, there's potential collapse. The damage continues to get worse. And as it continues to get worse, your costs go up, right? So we're out here fixing because of water damage and rot. So if we're doing one building and we fix it, and it takes us 10 years to get through all the buildings, what are the buildings that we get to at the end, what are they going to be doing? And so more damage, more money, more pain, but also emergency repairs. You might only have 1 or 2 leaks going on right now, but over the next 10 years, you're going to get more and more and more leaks. These are emergency repairs. This is where the emergency guys come out with vacuums and fans and rug suckers, and their bills aren't cheap. And so then you start getting nickel and dime to death with these emergency repairs, or death by 1,000 cuts. And so pay attention to that one too. So damage continues to grow. The buildings don't heal themselves. The fourth one, banks won't provide funding for a onesie-twosie fix. They want to give you a loan for one job. It may be 12 months, and that's fine, but the property that they've loaned on or the community that they've loaned on is bad. Here's the loan. It's now fixed. The property values went up. Their loan is protected. They statistically say we don't loan on these onesie-twosie things over an extended period of time because they don't finish. The next one, because of this, because you're in an association, we're all in this together, right? So who wants a 10-year assessment or a 10-year loan when you're the last building? So you're paying the assessments for this repair, but your building doesn't get fixed till year 10. I would be frustrated if I'm paying to something and I'm not seeing the results, or I'm not seeing the activity, or seeing the momentum. And then 10 years is a long time. Are you going to be here in 10 years? And then you get into, I'm tired of paying this. It's year 3, I'm tired of paying this, I'm just going to walk away. And so then the rest of the association has to pick up that bill again because you're all in this together. And so people who have paid off early, got their building fixed, may actually need to be paying again for those people that fail to stay with the program. So that's kind of an important one. The next one, hey, if you're doing this 10-year project, buildings 1 and 2 and 3 get fixed and they look gorgeous, but then buildings 4 through 7 or 4 through 10 look awful, then you get these resales. So wait a minute. Building number 1's units are selling for about 30, 40, 50% more than the rundown units, and we're all paying for this together. So those people who got their building fixed get to move and sell and take advantage of that increase in property value. That's not fair. That's not just. The next reason, if you have to move for financial reasons, I get the fact that this is an expensive project, an expensive proposition, and one big project is expensive, and that monthly payment is going to hurt. I get that. And so think about, you know what, if I can get my buildings fixed over the year program, pay those assessments for 12 months or 1 year, then I can sell. When the property values have jumped, it's a new cool looking building, I get that property value bump and I can get out. And so instead of paying that assessment for 10 years, only pay it for 1 year. I know it hurts, but get your building fixed up. Don't sell it when it's broken down. You'll only get flippers jumping in and buying at a discount. And so if you can hang tight, hang in there for 12 months, then sell and reap the rewards there. Pay off that assessment proceeds out of the sale. So then that's the money concerns. Reality concerns. Here's the first piece to why can't we just do one building at a time? Who gets to go first? The board? The squeakiest wheel? The street side properties. I've heard all of the excuses. Why don't we just do the front next to the sign so when people pull into the community they get excited? Who gets to determine that? And then why? Can you imagine the arguments about who gets to go first? So the second thing, disclosure issues for the 10 years that this project takes. So all resales, you're part of that community that I talked about earlier, you're going to have to say, yeah, my building's been fixed, but the rest of the association, it's still undergoing a 10-year loan. And yeah, there's still construction defects and there's still rot and damage and all that stuff. So get ready for a potential assessment if you buy here. If you don't say that, then the new buyer rolls in, buys it, thinks it's all done, and then says, wait a minute, nobody ever told me about this big thing out here. I'm going back and suing the seller that sold it to me. Do you want to deal with that big resale stigma? I wouldn't. So, big projects, next topic, persistence. Persistence to finish. So in today's decision to do this over 10 years, you have a group of volunteer board members, you have a group of populace that votes for this, you have a certain manager that agrees with this. Are you going to have that same board next year? Are you going to have the same populace next year? Are you going to have the same manager next year? 3 years? So you start getting into this time, and so then people come and go. So then 3 years from now, you don't have the energy and enthusiasm to be on this 10-year trek. And then it just falls apart. So, persistence to finish. Remember, that's why banks didn't loan. So the next item, you might have seen it, but the next item is the community starts looking different. So even if you matched perfect paint colors, you'd pull into the community as a buyer and see 2 brand new buildings looking really sharp. And the rest of the buildings, oh my God, what's wrong with them? They look terrible. Okay, or maybe worse. There's tinting and there's temporary shoring and there's emergency things going on and there's a dumpster in the back corner. Why do some of them look really cool and the rest of them, eh? So that's if you match the same color. I've actually seen some that, hey, it's time to paint, so let's come up to modern color schemes. Now we have 2 buildings in the multi-complex that look brand new and they're all fancy and cool and different finishes and different railings and different color windows. And you're like, wait a minute, why are the rest of these old and tired? Let's turn around. The next item is a psychological effect. So we've all done one long project and it was just such a pain in the ass pain in the butt, because you never saw an end in sight, right? So the negative psychological effect of always being under construction. So there's always noise. There's always dust. There's always trucks. Who are these workers in hard hats? There's always dumpsters occupying the visitor spots. There's always porta potties out in the grass. For the next 10 years, it's going to look like a war zone. Versus, you know what? It's a 12-month project. I can deal with that. Let's get in, get it done. As it's happening, I'm seeing the projects, the buildings come together and they look cool. And I'm getting excited. My building's next. And so that psychological effect of a process that has no end in sight. The next one, warranty concerns. So since we have a 10-year project, we're going to do building 1, year 1, building 2, year 2, You're likely going to have contractor 1, contractor 2, contractor 3. So then in a couple of years, what happens if there's a callback? What happens if, hey, building 5 has a roof leak? Well, who worked on that? I remember about 6 different contractors, and actually my management company's changed, so we've lost all our records. The board members all moved out, and who did what? So maybe it was the same roofer that roofed all the buildings, but it was different siders that sided the buildings, or different framers that, you get my point. Keeping track of who did what, when, becomes a big pain for any kind of callbacks. When you do one project with one contractor, you get one warranty, one throat to choke. Next item, your insurance company most likely will not renew you. So they see what's going on, they make their annual inspections, they say, hey, wait a minute, we understand you're doing a repair, but you've only fixed 2 buildings. These other 8 buildings, or however many, they're damaged and they're a risk, and those decks are going to fall off. Because that's why you started the first repair to begin with. That gets back into that damage theme I talked earlier, damage timeline. We've seen insurance companies say, you know what, nice knowing you, this has too much risk, I'm not going to reinsure you. Then in the insurance market, the next insurer comes up and says, have you ever been denied? Well, no. Have you ever been unreinsurable? Oops, yes. Oh, let me get out the big pencil. Now your premium is a lot more. So think about that. The next item, building materials and finishes, how they change. So we're trying to, You know, we've got the same scope that says, hey, put in this type of window, put in this type of siding. Here's the recipe. We're gonna fix the buildings 1Z, 2Z, 3Z. Every year there's window manufacturers going out of business or being bought up by the next guy. Same with the roofing, same with the siding. Certainteed fiber cement just got bought out by Allura. And are they keeping the same texture to make it look like wood plank? So now I've got one building that looks this way and another building that looks that way. One color windows in that building, another color windows, one frame design, another frame design. So trying to match things, you know, all that stuff is kind of on a lot basis, and things change, companies go in and out of business. So you're dealing with trying to match things over a long period of time, and you'll run the risk of not matching things. So the last reason is a great rule reason, and I saved it for the last because I think money concerns and reality concerns are one thing, but rules are another thing. You have a set of governing documents. You have, you know, a set of bylaws, and the typical bylaw, I haven't read yours, but I've read 99% of the standard format. It says when you have damage, the association has an obligation to repair. And so they have to go to reserves to repair it, or they have to assess to repair it. So here's what it says. If you have damage, you must assess. It doesn't say, if we have the money, we'll get around to it. It doesn't say, we can prioritize. It doesn't say, you know, just fix the roofs on that building and don't fix the roofs on that one. Or fix the decks that are falling off, don't fix the decks that are needing emergency shoring. This is an interesting thing. We get into lots of boards that say, well, you know, we can prioritize, or we can totem pole, or we can triage and just do what we need to get fixed right now. Bylaws don't say that. The bylaws say fix it. They don't say if you have the money. Okay? So the problem with that is there is a segment of the population that says, look, I want my building fixed. This is why I bought into a community. Or, look, I'm a flipper. I bought this low. I want to get it fixed so I can sell it and move on. If you don't follow the bylaws, I'm going to sue the board. And then you have one more lawsuit to defend, one more headache to deal with. And, you know, pay attention to your rules. It's your rule book. If you need to change the rule book, go change it. But pay attention. You've agreed to follow a set of rules. Follow them. So, anyway, 16 reasons why you really want to think about not doing 1Z, 2Z repairs. I get it. I really do. But I get the budget piece. But let's jump to, if you're painting your house, do you really paint one elevation at a time? You bite the bullet and you paint everything. A big repair process requires lots of things going on, and to start and stop and start and stop, it just gets expensive, and lots of these other reality concerns come into play. So I encourage you to think about that. Thanks for watching.